Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Welcome to Breakup Recovery Podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm Barbara Stevens, and Breakup Recovery is a podcast helping you recover from your breakup. In this episode, I welcome back Tanya Somerton, who is a divorce specialist working within her own company, Tanya Somerton Proprietary Limited, with an army of angels working together, including a team of lawyers, financial advisors, counsellors, psychologists, mortgage brokers, life coaches, stylists, and much more. No stone is left unturned in getting her clients the best possible outcome and framing their future success. When I recorded this interview with Tanya, she delivered so much content, I decided to split it into 2 episodes. The first one was episode number 101, How to Get Through the Divorce Process with an Army of Angels, with Tanya Somerton. That was last week's episode, where we talked about how her business is a one-stop shop for those people that are going through a divorce. They only have to tell their story once, and Tanya organises all their needs to help make the divorce process bearable and organise the necessary experts so the best possible outcome for her clients is achieved. So if you want to learn more about how that process works, please listen to episode 101 in Breakup Recovery Podcasts. I also wanted to mention that Tanya offers a free gift in episode 101, which I will repeat at the end of this episode. Tanya offered the listeners a free download of her book titled 46 Mindset Secrets to Turning Your Life Around and Becoming Wealthy. So look out for this offer, and I have included the details in the summary. So please now enjoy part 2 of my interview with Tanya, which is episode 102. Divorce does not have to mean your life is over, with Tanya Somerton. Here we explore many things about how you should work with a life coach or a stylist, about gaining clarity, some of the stigmas surrounding divorce, her book The Jelly Bean Jar, working with both men and women, and much more. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode. And why would you suggest a client uses a life coach or a stylist or someone like that?
I think they're all very, very key as well because, even with a life coach, a lot of when you're going through the divorce, and I say this quite often after going through it myself and speaking to my clients, you feel like you're swimming in Play-Doh, if that makes sense. You're just moving your arms, but you're not getting anywhere. And just sometimes having those professionals, especially, whether it be a life coach as such, and if you've never worked with one, it's, I recommend that you give them a go because they'll sometimes give you that clarity that you've wanted but you haven't known how to get, and they can draw that information out of you. Once you're starting to think differently, the opportunities just everywhere, but sometimes you can't see those opportunities because you're thinking about all of the dread and the disaster in your life rather than about how wonderful your life could actually be. So for me, it's key to not only think about mentally what's going on, but also physically. With our stylist, sometimes when you've been in a relationship for quite a long time, and I've had one of them come around to my house because I thought, I want to give this a go as well and see what it's like. And the experience was amazing. She went through all of my wardrobe and said, right, well, what do you want to represent in the world? What do you want people to think about you when they look at you? And every piece of clothing that I put on, she asked me, well, why do you want to keep that? What's the benefit of keeping that? And that alone was a therapy that I've never had before. So, if someone has been in a corporate world or they've been in a relationship for quite a long time and the clothing that they've worn has represented them, by sometimes changing their appearance, changes their outlook on their life as well.
It does make a big difference, doesn't it? Because sometimes after a divorce you your self-esteem can be so low. You just don't know what your future is going to hold, and you can go through that continual negative cycle. So to have someone like a stylist or a life coach come into your life can make a huge difference, as you said, to their future.
Oh, it's sort of, this is your opportunity. And this is what I get quite upset about is just because we've been through a divorce doesn't mean that we're still not important to society. And, there's been this stigma out there that if you've been divorced, that there's something wrong with you. But my working with people and my own sort of opinion on it is that sometimes, you can marry someone and you think you've got these hopes and aspirations that that person is the person that you will be with forever. But sometimes, especially women seem to outgrow men. We want to keep evolving and growing, where sometimes the man that we've married, they don't want to change. They're happy with that person that they are and who they've become. And it's those little things that sometimes eat away at us and whatever. But, there's even instances, and I talk about this in my book as well, where, our partner or even ourselves could go through stresses at work or things that have changed our outlooks, and we try really hard to stay together, but sometimes it just does not work. And if it's not going to work, there's no point sort of, as they say, flogging a dead dog. So we need to get up and do something about it. And then there's the ability that just because we've been divorced, that our future doesn't look bright. And our experiences, and I know this especially in my case, I am so grateful to have been married to my ex-husband for 22 years. I have 3 beautiful children that, I absolutely love and adore, and I wouldn't have them if it wasn't for him. But that experience of being married to him actually has made me the person I am today. If I hadn't have gone through that experience, I wouldn't be the person I am right now. So I'm so grateful for everything that we went through and what we did, what we achieved as a couple. But that was a stepping stone to something even bigger for me, if that makes sense. And I want other people to think like that as well. Just because you've gone through a divorce or you're going through a divorce, it does not mean that it's the end of your life. It can be actually the start of something amazing. So by seeing a life coach, a stylist, and thinking differently, it can actually just be, the start of something wonderful.
Definitely, and you've touched on your book a couple of times in this interview. So let's have a look at your book.
So it's called The Jelly Bean Jar, and it's about empowering independence through divorce. And people often say to me, why did you call your book The Jelly Bean Jar? And it's interesting because as a little girl, my mum explained to me that love, when you first met someone, love is like this beautiful big jar of jelly beans. And as you go through your relationship, when you do something wrong, a jelly bean comes out. But to have a really good relationship, what you need to do is make sure that if something is wrong or you do something wrong, then you replace that jelly bean. And ultimately, it's all about continually replenishing your jelly beans and making sure that your love continues to grow. And so I am remarried again now. My husband and I, we laugh all the time because it's all about having jelly beans everywhere. I want jelly beans all over the floor. It's about getting up every morning and making sure that, my first thought is, what can I do to make his life better? And he does the same thing for me. He goes out of his way to make sure that I'm happy. And I learnt that from my previous relationship where there was things I sort of probably took for granted. But my book is ultimately about the journey that I went through, but it's full of information. So as a property investor, I learned that, I had checklists for everything, and I needed to make sure that if I was dealing with an accountant, the questions that I would ask an accountant. So I interviewed 8 accountants before I actually found the accountant that I was going to work with for my property investment strategy. And the same with financial advisors and that. So I've got things within my book. If you're going to go to a lawyer, the questions to ask a lawyer and how to cut costs. If you're going to go to a financial advisor, what you need to ask them and make sure that they have in place. Things like, working with a coach and what you need to try and get out of the coach. But ultimately, it's about if you are going to get divorced, how to streamline that. So pretty much what I do in my business is what's outlined in my book.
So it's a how-to book?
Yes, I would say it is certainly a how-to book, but it also outlines probably the trauma that I went through to start with and how I was able to turn that trauma around into the sort of life I have today. So, making sure that we turn our negatives into a positive and some of the lessons that I learnt and hopefully what I want, I want other people to do as well. I just don't want anyone to think just because they've been divorced that they're not worthy of happiness.
Oh, exactly right. So the book is called The Jelly Bean Jar.
That's right, yes.
And where can people purchase the book?
So they can purchase it on my website, which is www.tanyasomerton.com/shop. They can get a hard copy there or get an e-copy. Luckily enough, I've sold more of my book over in America than I have actually here in Australia. So it's interesting because it doesn't matter where we are in the world, the process pretty much is exactly the same of how we have to try and get through divorce.
Exactly. So if people want to find out more about what you do, Tanya, and connect with you, how can they find this information?
So, yes, they can follow me on Facebook. So I'm actually Tanya Somerton Divorce Angel on Facebook, or they can go to my website, which is, as I said, www.tanyasomerton.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. But, I'd love to be able to provide some help or information for anyone that just wants some guidance. So, Barbara, I'd also love to offer your audience some support. I have on my website a book that I put together, and it was 46 Mindset Secrets to Turning Your Life Around and Becoming Wealthy. So if your audience would like to go to my website, which is www.tanyasomerton.com/shop, that 46 Mindset Secrets to Turning Your Life Around and Becoming Wealthy is there. If you'd like to click on that, and when you go to put it into your shop, you can put in podcast and they can get it for free. And hopefully that will give them some ideas on how, if they're going through divorce, they could look at the financial aspects of that, which is so, so important to your future.
It definitely is. And Tanya, I just wanted to clarify, do you only work with women or do you work with women and men?
That's a great question, because ultimately the business was set up for women, but I have to say we've helped a lovely gay couple, and I am getting more and more men every day. So I won't ever turn anyone away. Ultimately, as I said, it did start just for women because I was working with like-minded women, but I can obviously see in the future it becoming more and more to men, because men need the help and the assistance just as much as women do.
I agree with that, because when I first started this podcast, it really was focused towards women, but I have had more and more men contact me, and I also now are working with men. So it's an interesting thought. We start from wanting to help the female, and we turn out that our help or our ideas and the things that we can offer women, we can also offer men as well.
Oh, certainly. It's interesting because I think we may have discussed this before, but I was sort of saying to you in my book, I break divorces down into 3 different categories. And there's, the category where sometimes, if you've made the decision to get divorced, that you're feeling sort of a little bit worried and, geez, what is everyone going to think? And then there's the second divorce where you actually did not see it even coming and you feel like you've been hit by a road train. And then there's this third divorce where you're sort of not getting along really and no one wants to take responsibility for the relationship. But here in Australia, if you look at the stats, it's really high, the amount of women that actually instigate the divorce, which means ultimately a lot of the men fall into that second category where they just did not see it coming, and they really need a level of care and compassion. They're going to get that from people such as ourselves, women that can show them that, where a lot of men lawyers and even their mates don't actually understand what they're going through, where we do understand from an emotional side a little bit better than some of the men out there in industry. So I love working with men. I have a one man that thinking about right now that, 55-year-old man did not even see it coming. He's just such a gorgeous person and he's so grateful for the help that I give him. So I love working with men.
Tanya, I'm going to put your details of your website and the Facebook details on the summary of this podcast so people can actually look that up and go straight to your website. Thank you for coming on to Break Up Recovery podcast and sharing your insights and your ideas, and also for your fantastic offer, your free offer that people can go to your website and go into the store so they can download that free offer of the 46 mindsets. And so when they go into the checkout, they just have to type the word podcast in. It'll automatically come for free. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. It's my free gift to them.
Thank you very much for that free gift. And I'm sure my listeners will take that free gift on board and download that. And thank you, Tanya, once again for taking the time to come on to Break Up Recovery podcast. I've really enjoyed this interview and you have given us so many tips and ideas. And I'm sure that everything that you've told us, even though you're an Australian business, people from other countries can relate to the information that you are sharing. And I'm quite sure that you can even work with people who are living in other countries. So thank you once again for coming on.
No, thank you, Barbara. I really, really appreciate all your help and support. And as I said, I think you're doing an amazing job as well, just getting this podcast out and helping people with this alone is, once again, just an amazing thing to do to help people. So thank you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode number 102. Divorce does not have to mean your life is over, with Tanya Somerton. I've put all Tanya's contact details in the summary, so be sure to look for that if you would like to find out more about what Tanya offers. Also, be sure to take up Tanya on her offer of her free book, using the code PODCAST in the coupon code section of the cart. I hope you took something away from this episode of Break Up Recovery podcast. And if you think the information shared in this episode could help someone you know who is struggling through their breakup, I hope you will share it with them or tell them about the podcast so they too can get some ideas, strategies and tips to help them through their own breakup. I am a breakup recovery mentor, and if you are struggling to get back on track after your breakup and you would like to work with me one-on-one, please reach out via my website or message me on Facebook and take advantage of my free 30-minute sounding board session, and we can have a chat to see if I can help you. And the last thing I'd like to say is, be gentle on yourself. You deserve happiness.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.